Okay, so now they can now here we are. All right, we're live.
All right, hello.
Hello,
Hello.
welcome to Discussions and Dragons, our new exciting podcast, named by our good friend Vlad. I'm Steve. That's Eric. Am I getting that right? I am getting that right.
Yes.
Just like the pointing, I was trying to point to your frame over here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, this is good audio-based content. How's it going, Eric?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about the thing that we're going to talk about today.
Me too. Actually, I have notes on it. I wrote
You
things
do?
down.
Man,
Yeah.
you're more prepared than I am. 'Cause
I don't mess around. I don't mess
Yeah.
around.
you're the one who really carries this podcast. So,
I don't carry anything
I don't know.
ever.
Fair enough. I'm gonna take a sip of this coffee and then we'll get started.
I will do the same. That'll be our intro. Our intro will just be both of us quietly sipping coffee.
What kind of coffee do you drink?
It's just French vanilla. It's real basic.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is like a Keurig cup, like Folgers, like
Nice.
super basic.
Oh yeah, we do Newman's Own from Costco.
Yeah, Costco's the jam, dude.
Everything.
Just get like 50-cent hot dogs.
And then like 300 K cups of coffee for
Right.
like $8.
Yeah, exactly. It's legit. All right, so we're gonna talk about rolling dice.
Oh
today.
man, this is gonna be good stuff.
So Dungeons and Dragons Twitter and tabletop in general Twitter has blown up this week, with debates and discussions about dice rolls, and as a GM, do you roll behind a screen? Do you hide it from your players? And then the main thing is like, do you fudge dice rolls for the sake of like of narrative and stuff? And this is a fun gonna be a fun thing, because we're gonna talk about this and we have no idea how each other feels about this.
It's very difficult. Very difficult.
We have saved it. Yeah, I'm a little anxious. This could end with us. This could be our only episode of the podcast.
This is the one and only start and finish of the podcast.
But I think that's a thing that I think, like, in all seriousness, this is a thing that like I trust you and like I hope that you feel the same way, that like we can talk about this even if we're in disagreement, and like keep it civil and not like
like adults.
Yeah, unlike tabletop Twitter.
Take note, community.
Like, we're real paragons of the community here on Discussions and Dragons.
Just doing what we do.
Yeah. Also, you have a very good mug.
Thank you. It was a Christmas gift from my fiance like 3 years ago.
Nice. I've got a very Christmas themed mug. It's got like snowflakes on it. So
yes.
I find
it's my
that
favorite time of the year.
Most of the mugs in my house are Christmas themed, and so I just drink from Christmas themed things year round. And you know what? That's okay.
That's perfect.
All right.
Most of my mugs are nerdy themed or have vulgar statements on them.
Yeah, totally. All right, my chair has been adjusted. I'm upright in my discussing position.
All right.
So
let's get professional on this shit now.
Right. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go first? Should we go at the same time?
I think we should go at the same time. Like, honest.
How are we gonna? Can we write on a piece of paper and then hold it up to the camera at the same time?
Yes, we can.
Are
we doing just a basic yes no? Is it okay to fudge dice rolls?
Is it okay to fudge dice rolls? Yes or no?
This is quality.
And we'll hold it up to the This is audio-based content at its finest.
Oh boy. Is that big enough? I hope so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is gonna...
I hope this reads. Okay.
Yeah, this will be a good... Alright.
Wait, okay, I feel like you're writing a lot. Are you doing...
No, I only have a pen, so I'm like tracing over it. Like, I'm writing you a paragraph that you have to read from the camera. All right.
I'm cheating because I have a little a little badger of writing utensils.
That's very good. If we don't make it as Dungeons and Dragons podcasters, we can go into arts and crafts.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Is it okay to fudge dice rolls?
All right. 3, 2, 1.
I said yes.
I said no. Hell yeah. This is everything that I've ever wanted.
This is what I'm here for.
Yeah. All right. So meet me out in the back parking lot after school. Yeah. We'll meet by the flagpole.
3:30 by the flagpole.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. This is great. Yeah. This would have been a very anticlimactic thing. Now that I think about it, if we both were in agreement.
If we were just like yes, then we both were like, all right.
Yeah. All right.
Good for us.
So, Eric, my dear friend, whom I love, why is it okay to fudge dice rolls? Why do you think that it's okay to fudge dice rolls, you monster?
I would like to first do a callback to earlier when I was like, are you a liar? Yes, I am a liar. I do think it's okay to fudge dice rolls. I think the dice are just another tool at the DM's disposal. I don't think you should be fudging every single dice roll because random, like that chance is a giant factor of the game. So you have to leave that in there somehow. But I don't know. There's always reasons in my mind for why you can just fudge something one way or the other. Usually always in favor of the players. It's like during like a random encounter, if I'm rolling all criticals, I'm not about to TPK on a random encounter with like 5 goblins because the players are rolling bad and I'm rolling amazing. That ruins a story. And like the entire point is for us to tell a story and for everyone to have fun. And I don't think anybody has fun when a random encounter wipes a party. I don't think anybody enjoys that.
Sure. Unless you're like one of those GMs. But I don't.
One of those players.
But I don't think that either of us are. So,
no, yeah, so definitely not.
So here's where I'm at.
Yes.
I think that fudging dice rolls violates the social contract that you and your players agree to when you sit down to play a game of D&D or anything, honestly.
Yeah.
And so in those scenarios where like 5 goblins are like critting over and over or something like that, like sometimes that happens, but like when that happens, that's what makes for the story, right? Oh, like it sucks in the moment, but like in a year we're just like, oh man, remember when we got TPK'd by those like fucking like Black Ops Commando Goblin Squad, like, you know, that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's that I do have to say is, in my opinion, the strongest argument against fudging the dice rolls is the idea of we all sat down. Part of that social contract is I'm not going to lie to you. Don't lie to me about what you roll. Yeah. And I get that. That is the strongest one, which is why I think we could do an entire episode on the social contract. I'll tell you up front, when I'm rolling behind the screen, it's noise. I roll the dice to make noise. I'll tell you whatever I want, but I'm always going to be fair to you as the player and fair to the story as a whole. I take a lot of whether or not I'm going to fudge my rolls on who the player is. Because there's some players who get really attached to their characters, and I'm not going to kill your character on a random encounter if you've got, you know, a plan level 1 to 20. That's not to say your character is safe from death,
right?
Because I will kill it if you trigger a trap, if you do something like whatever. I'm not going to joke around. But if it's like a random encounter or something minor that doesn't give your character, in my opinion, a proper death, because I'd be pissed if somebody killed off my character and it was just like, oops, you got hit with a poisoned arrow. I guess your character's dead. You've been playing it for a year and a half now.
But like the chances of that happening are so infinitesimal that I find it I find it fascinating when it does happen, because it happens like once an incredibly blue moon or whatever. Like,
yeah, oh, absolutely.
I've been running games for like almost 3 years now. I've never had anything even remotely close to that happening.
I've only been in, of all the games I've ever played, which we could do an episode on, I've only been in 2 where like a random encounter took out a character.
Yeah.
But both times I saw the person they were disappointed. Like they were like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Like I'm very grateful that I've only been in games with mature adults who like no, we don't fall into like. Well, no, that's not true. At my table, we fall into bickering and yelling, but we're all best friends, so like we can fall into bickering and yelling.
Right.
But other games, like the people always took it really well, but like you always see that disappointment, and I'm always like, I kind of feel that disappointment too.
But like for me, the disappointment is like, and we could do a whole other episode about losing.
I'm
characters.
Disappointment. Just disappointment.
Because like yeah, you're disappointed in the moment, but then like you go and you like walk away and you remove yourself from the situation for a while, and then you're like you like think of a new idea for a character, and like now you're excited because you get to like play a shiny new toy, you know, like
oh sure.
But
right, and that comes down to the player. If the player wants to make a new character and wants to roll up something else, absolutely. My big thing is, and we've agreed on this in the past multiple times, it's all about everybody having fun.
Right.
If you want to play that character and that is who you want to be from start to finish, I'll do everything within my power to keep you there. But like, I'm not gonna. Again, I don't put you in an invulnerable shell where you won't die no matter what.
Right.
But I will actively push the fates in your favor to ensure that you don't die insignificantly.
See, like I find that interesting because you say like you don't want them to like die insignificantly, but you say like you're like you're okay with like killing a player or killing a character that like triggered a trap or something like that.
Sure, if you do something stupid, like if you actively do something dumb and it gets you killed, I'm not going to pull punches on that because that's you actively doing something. As I said, if it's like a random encounter and I happen to be rolling really well and you're rolling really shit, I'm not going to kill you. That's just, as a DM, I'm like, ugh, that's a situation I'd rather not.
But are there not other ways to not kill someone besides fudging dice rolls? Because that's what I do.
Like what?
So for instance, this came up in the Waterdeep game that I'm playing. So we're into some examples. My party, we like got around through and they're like going through this Xanathar guild hideout that's in the sewers, and they get into an encounter with a Duragar and a human bandit who they knew from like the intro scene. He's like in the intro scene, and like if you like let him live in the intro scene, then he's like here. And they kill the Duragar and they capture the bandit, and they like interrogate him, which is how they get some information about like who the boss is, like the boss of this like hideout, and like where to go and stuff. And they bring him with them to meet the boss. They go to meet the boss, and they like start the fight, like the boss fight, and the bandit is just like sitting there because they didn't tie him up. They were just kind of like holding him at sword point, but then like he was no longer held at sword point because they were fighting the boss guy. And so and so when I said like, you know, Krentz the bandit like takes out his sword and like points it at you, one of my players like thinks very quickly and says, you know, oh, I'm gonna try to convince him to betray his boss. I'm like, okay, like make a persuasion check, and he like tries to do it and he fails, and so like Krentz is now fighting them, and so now this boss encounter, which was pushed because like the players are still level 1 at this point, so like so like it was already kind of like a difficult encounter. It's like a orc spellcaster and like another goon, and now it's this other goon, and the party
like a CR4.
Yeah, exactly. It's like and like there's a fucking intellect devourer there, just like which like but like so it's like it's a difficult encounter, and like try though they might, like my friend Jim's rogue goes down and like is now making death saves, and so like sure, so at this point like if I were playing like to win, then like okay, like he gets knocked down by Krentz the bandit. Krentz the bandit like shoves his axe into your skull, and you like lose 2 death saves, and now it's like save or die, right? But like but what I did instead was like I like Krentz like knocks him down and then like goes over and starts fighting another party member to give so now it's like just Jim, like it's on Jim the player to like save like do his death saves.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the intellect devourer like is sitting there trying to do its like thing where it like stuns and like reduces intelligence to 1 and like all that kind of stuff. And it was a hard fight, but I, instead of like fudging rolls for the players to overcome it, because none of the players were particularly interested in like dying. They were all like kind of into their characters and everything. And so I just kind of adjusted like what I was doing tactically. So like I never fudged a dice roll. But my players won. They won very narrowly, and I very easily could have, with the resources at my disposal, probably wiped them out were I like playing optimally. But I just like that's how I like to deal with like those kind of situations where either I'm rolling well or if like an encounter feels like really unbalanced or something like that. And so like so like that's what I do instead of like fudging rolls.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot that you can do with tactics and how you're using your battlefield to avoid having to. Again, I don't think fudging rolls is something that you should do all the time. I definitely generally use the dice roll. It's just in moments of, I'm like, I don't want to cause another critical against the same person that I've just critical once before their level 1 party. Like, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Now, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
The reverse side of it, because I don't just fudge I fudge dice rolls. If you're sitting down at my table, understand that it's just noise you hear when I roll the dice.
If we ever play a game of D&D together and you fudge dice rolls on me, I'm going to be real upset at you.
Oh no, you should know if you ever play tabletop D&D with me, and I mean online you can't because you have to roll the thing. Yeah. But like if you're ever sitting, it's just noise. But the thing is, I roll behind a screen. Sure. So part of it is, as part of the social contract, you understand that you don't know. And I think a lot of people sitting down to play D&D, if your DM is using a DM screen, you're kind of possibly unwittingly agreeing to the social contract that they will be making all of their rolls in secret, and you are trusting that whatever they say is what they rolled, or whatever they want it to be. That in and of itself is kind of giving the DM leeway to be allowed to fudge dice rolls. Now,
I don't know.
I will also cite that the Dungeons Master's Guide for Dungeons and Dragons itself states it's okay for DMs to fudge their dice roll as part of the DM's job. You're allowed to do whatever you need to do to propel a story and to facilitate fun for the table. If fudging a dice roll will help facilitate fun and propel a story forward, the DM's guide says it's perfectly fine. Now, I'm not saying I follow every rule in the dungeon.
I was going to say.
We both have discussed it at all.
Yeah, right.
But it is nice to know that even the DM's guide will state that there is some credibility to being allowed to fudge dice rolls where relevant. Not just anywhere.
So I have a question for you then.
Yes.
Can you come up with, or like, have you ever been in a scenario where doing what I was talking about, like playing tactically or adjusting like what you're doing, like would not have been enough? Like is there? Can you like give me a scenario? Like convince me that there is a scenario where the only way to like not kill this person or whatever or do bad thing is to fudge a dice roll.
Absolutely. I have one for you. And it's the one that I will always use in my argument for why I fudge dice rolls.
You were prepared.
I am. I'm here for it. Because a lot of people I know don't fudge dice rolls and are adamant against it. But I'm like, here's why I do it. Mm-hmm. I ran a campaign that took 3 years. They got to the final boss, and I couldn't roll well at all. And they were wiping the boss of a 3-year-long campaign to the point where they were sitting there like, oh, this wasn't much. So I started fudging rolls. He started doing better. I didn't kill anybody, but I knocked several people down by just being like, oh, he hits this. Like, this goes off. He started making saves. Like, and the fight became more interesting. And then it took a lot longer. I expanded it out. But I did it in the reverse. Instead of lying to my players about the rolls that I made to make it easier for them, I had to fudge the dice rolls to make it an actual enjoyable fight. So that by the end, they were like, oh my God, he had so many cool abilities. All these little things went off. Where it was like, otherwise, if I just kept rolling shit, he would have been dead in the first like 5 rounds because it's all of them versus this boss, and he did have minions and stuff come in, but he was rolling so poorly that it was like every turn he was taking massive amounts of damage, even with legendary actions, which I blew through in the first couple rounds, or the legendary resistances which I blew through so quickly because he couldn't make any saves.
Right.
You're fighting large level party. I didn't want it to be a boring boss fight.
Sure. So like in that scenario, so this is a thing that I've done. It's not fudging dice rolls, but I have on the fly fucked with stats.
So you're saying it's okay? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, no. So here's an example. So I had my like West Marches like world that I've built that I've told you a bit about, and it's all based on like everything's a creature, like like that mountain that you see, that's like a fucking like Earth Titan and like that sort of stuff.
Right.
And as a result of that, based on like events that were kind of like triggered in this kind of like it was a West Marches style thing, but I had like the same group of players for like 4 or 5 weeks, so we did like a little mini arc, and because of the events that got triggered, they're like level 3, level 4, and like we're fighting like earth elementals and shit like that. And so like I adjusted like the before the encounter, I was like, okay, like there's no way that a party of like 3 to 4 third level characters can fight an earth elemental at like full strength. It's like CR like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I don't remember exactly. And so I like cut its HP down. I took away its like non-magic resistances, and I did stuff like that before the encounter, which I think is like perfectly like a thing that like everyone should do no matter what. But then we got into the actual encounter, and even though I had like kind of like changed his HP and he didn't have like the resistances, and my like narrative justification was that like they are like elementals who are awakening in this world, but they are like not full powered yet. They're like corrupted earth elementals, and so they're like brittle and fragile and like that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But this earth elemental was still kind of kicking the shit out of everyone, and I was just like, oh, this boy is way more powerful than I thought. And it wasn't necessarily because it was a combination of like I was rolling pretty well, and like I didn't do anything, and so like I was like, okay, so what can I do? And so all I did was take his strength, which was like like his like slam attacks were like a +6 to hit, and I just like made it a +4. And like then he was hitting less often. When he still got to attack, he was still like multi-attacking, which like I think that was the big thing. Like multi-attacking like a third level party can be like really swingy, really deadly. And so I took that out, and instead of doing like 2d6, I just made his attack do like the 1d6 plus his strength, like that sort of thing. And I kind of like made that decision on the fly. I don't necessarily consider that like cheating in the same way, because I'm not fudging rolls like the actual rolls.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I don't. Well, I made a face just because I don't consider fudging dice rolls as cheating. I don't think there's necessarily cheating at Dungeons and Dragons. But that's neither here nor there. That could be a whole nother episode of cheating in D&D. I do, however. I mean, I also fudge stats on monsters midway through. Mm-hmm. Again, I change things and alter things as stuff goes. Everything in my game is malleable.
Right.
So it's dependent on the wave of the action.
Yeah.
If this moment should be more critical, you make things more difficult if it seems to be too easy for the party.
Right.
Otherwise, they're rolling through everything. If this moment's too difficult and it should be easier for them, you make things easier. Mm-hmm. A lot of that came from I've always done homebrew. I've never run an out-of-the-box campaign. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
But because I've always homebrewed everything, there's always the chance that what I created
is
more difficult,
absolutely,
or way too easy. So I've always gotten kind of used to the idea of I have to be able to alter things on the fly to ensure that I'm not rolling the party and they're not rolling my game, so that everybody has fun. So to that end, fudging dice rolls was kind of the first go-to to ensure that plot continues and combat doesn't stop. And it was kind of a crutch that I used early on as a GM. My thing on it is, again, I think it's fine if you do it in moderation. I don't fudge every dice roll, but I do tell people that if I'm rolling dice, you should understand it's noise. Like, it's the same thing where if I'm rolling a dice if you make a perception check, even if there's nothing there to find, I'll roll dice and tell you found nothing. But you hear that noise. That's a tool for the DM. If you hear me rolling dice, you're now not sure. Whereas if you make a perception check and I just say, oh, you find nothing, you know there's nothing there because nothing was trying to hide. I didn't have to make an opposed check for anything, da-da-da. Whereas if you're like, oh, I make a perception check and I roll dice, even if there's nothing there, I say, you find nothing. Why'd I roll dice? So the dice themselves are a tool, whether you use them and say their result or you just make it up and tell the story as you go, is kind of up to, in my opinion, the DM. And if you choose to do these things, I agree with you that you should be a little upfront about it. You should tell parties, you should inform them that, if you're not 100% random, anybody who sits at my table knows that I follow the story. Sure. So it'll always follow the story. The dice rolls I usually follow, but I've definitely fudged them in the past. I've also altered creatures' stats on the fly in the past.
Yeah, totally. Like that. Yeah. Like that's what I would have done in your scenario with like your end boss. That's what I would have done. I would have just been like, okay, like he's just got like a plus, like if he had like a +8 or something or whatever he had.
Oh yeah,
I would just be like,
statted.
Cool.
He was statted.
Cool. He's got it. Yeah,
too.
Yeah. He's got it. He's just like yeah.
And it was like instead of increasing his AC from like 20 to 22 or 23 or whatever, I was like, I don't need to alter any stats and then try to like rebalance them later. I'll just be like, boom, he makes that save instantly instead of trying to like realign stats and like balance everything out, because increasing something's AC increases the probability that it won't get hit by X amount and da-da. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Instead, I see a 2 on the die and I'm like, boom, 18. He makes that save. Thank you. Next.
Yeah. Nope, not about it. Like, so
what's interesting is that you don't like fudging the dice rolls.
Right.
But you are okay with altering the stats. From my point of view, if you're changing anything that your players are actively engaged in, it's kind of the same thing. Fudging a dice roll and then changing some stats are relatively similar. The only difference is with the dice roll, you're affecting the chance of something. With the stats of a creature, you're just affecting the material thing that they're fighting. So, like, it's really not changing anything on the two if you do one versus the other.
I feel like the dice is like so we've got tools as dungeon masters that we can like implement to like balance things on the fly or like make things interesting to the story, or like, we have like all sorts of like different points of control in our games, like narratively, tactically, all of that. And like ever since I like first started, and even before I started, when I was like only watching, like, because I watched a lot of like content before I like got a chance to actually get in there and like run games and do stuff. Like in my head, like fudging dice rolls was never even a thing, like until like it's, I mean, I obviously know it's a thing now and I've known it's a thing for a while, but like when I was first getting into it, like the ability of like the GM to like fudge a dice roll was like never even remotely a thing that like in my head like made any sense to do, because like that's the game is the rolling the dice, and like it's, you as the GM are doing it, the players are doing it, like that is the core sort of like system that everyone is engaging in together. All of the other stuff like that is happening in the game, I think is malleable and is subject to the GM to like balance and tweak and stuff. If I've got a random encounter and I throw like 7 goblins at my party and the goblins happen to be rolling really well and they're like, it's like not looking so hot for the party, when the party then kills like 2 or 3 of them, I'll be like, oh, okay, like the goblins get scared, and like, I'll like roll a die and like I'll roll like a d4 and like 1d4 goblins will like flee in terror.
Right. Like, well, yes, I totally get that. Go on. Sorry.
No, that's I mean that's my point being that like we have like all these other like creative different ways that we can adjust like the balance and the narrative and all of that kind of stuff. Like, you know, the big bad end boss that like isn't rolling really well that everyone rips through, and like just because like you're having a shitty day, oh, that was just an illusion, it's just an apparition, like he's actually over there now, you know, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And they're all really great tools to kind of the same end, though. And that's where I don't really get the huge fiery debate about it, because you're using all of the tools to get the same result. The end result is everybody has fun, we tell a story, a fight happens, yada, yada, yada. Right. Like, if that's the end result, you can use, you know, the tools that you have available to achieve the same end. For me, like fudging my own dice rolls assists me in getting there to the same result easier, faster, more efficiently, whatever. Like, it's just, that's what I do to get there, only in situations where I need to.
Right.
It's all, in my opinion, it's all trying to do the same thing. If you're all sitting down at the table together with the same expectations and you all want the same thing out of it, then that's what matters, as long as you all walk away from the table doing the same thing. Now, if you're a player who's like, I do not like when the DM lies about the dice rolls, bring it up.
Yeah.
If you're the type of DM, I mean, if you don't like when DMs fudge their dice rolls, I won't fudge my dice rolls for you.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm critting on you and you're okay with that, I will crit. I roll really well, so Eric, I'll drop you.
Eric, I don't like it when you fudge dice rolls. Don't fudge dice rolls against me.
I won't. I 100% won't. But yeah. I do know I have players at my table who, and they're like, I don't want my character to die. I very much enjoy this character, and I do have a plan for them all the way to the end. That's fine. Like, again, I'll drop you. You'll be dying. Right. You might even die, and then I'll create a resurrection quest for you.
Right.
I just don't want to kill your character insignificantly. Like, I don't want to kill you in like a random encounter with a couple goblins and then set up this resurrection quest when you're like, oh, when I could instead just fudge a couple dice rolls and then give you a more significant death in the next dungeon or whatever against a boss, and then set up this quest where you're like, oh, well, then we fought this boss and I killed him, but he killed me, and then everyone had to resurrect me, as opposed to we ran into some goblins in the woods and they shot me real good. You're
yeah. Sometimes the goblins can be.
I agree 100%. I had one game where they fought against Katoi, like the little frog people.
Yeah.
And one guy tried to grapple it, and I just would not roll a 20.
Yeah.
So it was like every time I tried to grapple it, it would grapple him, and they just went back and forth until it's. And he was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I was like, he's really good. That was one player who asked me not to fudge rolls. He was like, no, I don't like that. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is another thing, and this isn't quite. This is like a tangential thing that I actually just thought about.
Tangential.
Do you ever hit a point where with your players where you don't make them roll to do stuff? So for instance, like I was watching a stream the other day, and like this big Goliath fighter was trying to wrangle this monster, and like the Goliath had like 20 strength, and it just so happened that he was rolling really poorly and the worm was rolling really well, and like so went back and forth, and it created this like kind of comical moment as he's like trying to like wrangle this like giant worm thing, and like it was funny, but like I feel like in that situation, if like the thing that like he was trying to wrangle had like a strength score of like 11 or like 10 or something little like that, I like if someone is like my strength 20 Goliath fighter wants to just like go up and like wrangle this thing and they're not in combat or anything, I wouldn't make them roll. I'd just be like, okay, you do it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Same thing with like rogues if they're checking for traps. If I know what your base score is or whatever, or like what your average is, if the trap is below 5 under your average, I just assume you find it.
Right.
Like at this point, you know what a tripwire looks like, and you're just like, there it is.
In our Strahd game, my cleric has a passive perception of 18. whenever we like go into a place, like at least once per session, whenever we go into like, you know, a new area or a new thing, I like to go like, all right, DM, I just want to take this moment to remind you about my 18 passive perception.
My 18 passive.
So yeah, totally, absolutely. So like
passive perception,
because like people, so like, yeah, so if you like, I've also seen things where GMs want their players to notice something, and so they were like, oh, make a perception check, and then like the players fail the perception check, and it's like, oh, they like didn't notice this thing. And my opinion on that kind of thing has always been like, well, if you like really want them to notice a thing, then like don't make them make the check.
Just don't make them, right, exactly.
Yeah, do you notice a thing?
A pitfall of, in my opinion, a pitfall of early GMing is when you put critical things at a DC of any kind. Like, if they need to find something, don't make them check for it at all, because you can't account for, if everybody rolls a 1,
right,
you can't be like, look what you found.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. There's certain, at a certain point, one, I just stop making people roll for anything, unless they want it. Or, well, so I still make them roll in, because this is the thing where I do use the dice for their chance, though. I do use them for their probability, even when I fudge mine. Even if I know you can find things, if your check is really, really high, I make you roll to make sure you don't get that 1 or a 20. You can't critical a skill check in D&D, and probably other things too. But at my table, our group has decided that 1s and 20s should be significant anyway.
Sure.
So if you roll like a 1 on it, you specifically don't find it or whatever. And if you roll a 20,
you get like
maybe
an extra thing.
Yeah, you find it. You not only can disarm it, but you take some pieces from it and you can rebuild another trap.
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I still make you roll, but like if I know that you'll be able to find it, as long as it's not a 1, you're good.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I did like handography that entire time. It was really good.
You were doing your like Naruto.
I was like voguing the entire time.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
So ultimately, this was good.
I think so. I don't think we've convinced each other one way or the other.
No, nor do I think you need to. I think
it's a stylistic thing.
Exactly. Yeah. The important thing is, as long as you're playing in a game where you understand the DM or GM and the GM understands you, like, that's what's important.
Right.
As long as you're having a good time.
Yeah.
At my table, if you just want to sit there and have the story, then we'll do the story. But I have had people be like, please don't fudge dice rolls for me. And I'm like, okay, I won't.
Yeah, because the dice rolls are the story.
Yeah. So. To a certain extent, absolutely. That's why I fight so hard against like fudging all dice rolls, because a little bit of randomness is what makes D&D fun. Like when those random things happen, that's a lot of fun, and that's what helps generate, especially if you're running a game that's like player plot generated, where you don't write anything up and you just let them create everything. In games like that, you almost can't fudge a dice roll, because that's your game. Yeah. In a linear setup campaign, you have a little bit more leniency for when you need to fudge dice rolls, because you it's not dependent on the dice rolls, the story.
Right. And like there's something to be said too, is like if like someone is the type of person that like fudges dice rolls like an above average amount or like a lot or whatever, then play a different game. You know, like like one of the things I love about Blades in the Dark so much is that the GM doesn't roll. Like I haven't rolled a single time. I rolled exactly one time in our entire like 4 episodes of our Blades game, and that was to figure out whether or not Jaren would be into Marissa's character, and that was it. You know,
that was it.
but there are games that are like that are more focused on like the story and the narrative, where as a GM you can be reactive in whatever way, in like different ways depending on what you want to be doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I've definitely played in games where the DM didn't roll at all, and they were like games of Dungeons and Dragons. Be like, yeah, he misses, he attacks, he misses, and the DM didn't have any probability. Like the DM just told the story, and just the players were affected by probability. It was very interesting. I only played in it very briefly during college, but it actually, I'm like the furthest thing from an elitist. Like I'll literally play anything. You put a character in front of me, give me whatever. I'm like, yes, I'm here. Let's do it.
Right.
I was like, yeah, that was great. This was super fun.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right. But like one of the things I like about you is that like no matter like you put any character in front of you and you'll play it, but you'll figure out the best way to play it, even if it's not.
That's
optimal.
Also true. I will automatically. Yeah. That's so true. We were setting up our characters for Blades in the Dark. I was like, no.
Yeah.
How can I optimize this?
That's why I was like, I was actually so like one of the things I was really happy about was like, and I still am. I'm like so excited for like once you've got like 10 sessions of Blades under your belt, and I can be like, all right, Eric, here's all the ways that I've learned how to min-max Blades in the Dark over the several years of me playing it.
That's all I want.
Yeah, exactly. It's not power gaming. There's a difference.
No, it's not. Yeah. Oh, no. Min-maxing and power gaming are very different.
That's a whole other episode, too.
That's it. Right. Min-maxing, power gaming, and optimizing?
Yeah, write that one down in the potential other episodes. Yeah. I've noticed every time we've said like, "Oh, that's an episode," you've been writing it down. So.
I've been writing it down. Yeah, I'm the note taker.
Yeah, you're our you've got our minutes, the minutes of our podcast.
That'll be our intro. Each month, I just read the minutes from the last one.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, it's been like 42 minutes, and I think we've done it.
I think we have.
I think I've said all that there is to say, and
the last thing that I'll say.
Oh yeah.
Is that I have a Gary Gygax quote from 2013.
Of course. I'm not even remotely surprised that you have this.
It is from his MMORPG that didn't end up going doing really, really well. And it's from the forum where he wrote, "A DM only rolls dice for the noise they make."
And that's why his MMO didn't do well, Eric.
Oh, Gary Gygax.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So,
but yeah.
So yeah, this has been Discussions and Dragons. Which I think I like. I think I'm liking the title.
Because that's what it is. I enjoy that we have opposite opinions, but we were able to discuss it. I think that's
we're gonna go fight about it. We're gonna go like fisticuffs about it as soon as we start.
Well, 3:15 by the flagpole. That's what we agreed.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got 3 hours left to live, bud.
I fill my pockets with sand, so I hope you're wearing your glasses when we fight because it's gonna be a lot of eyes.
I got my fighting goggles. Don't worry.
I think a fight between you and I would be entertaining to watch for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We're also the type of people, I feel, that it's like if we were ever forced to fight, we would just gentleman's agreement to like PvP each other in like a tabletop game.
Absolutely.
Like we both like generate a deadly encounter and we just play the deadly encounters against each other.
This is it. Totally. Oh, we are gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll do. So this is a thing. We should probably talk about this. So we'll be doing these every other week.
Yes.
We record them and stream them on Sundays. I will have this up by Tuesday, I think. Because you need to wait 24 hours to export a video from Twitch onto YouTube because terms of service is a thing. This will be up on these will be up on YouTube on Tuesday, and eventually we'll get a podcast feed, like a real podcast feed, and we'll like have like an audio only version of it. Maybe we'll release it on SoundCloud. We could be SoundCloud podcasters.
I'm sorry, my fiance is.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Steve says hi, by the way. Mike says hi.
This is we're in the. there we go. Yep.
Subtle.
Yeah.
We're subtle people.
Yeah,
subtle
very good. Very good. I appreciate it. Well, like, a little bit of physical comedy is never a bad thing in your audio-only medium.
It's always good. It's always good for a little slapstick humor.
Always needed.
Audio only.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. So, yes, every other Sunday, we'll be doing this. And then
And then
on Tuesday for
yeah,
YouTube.
and then on the off weeks, we're gonna try to do stuff.
Yes,
Not next Sunday because it's Lich Jesus Day.
Yeah, Happy Lich Jesus Day.
Yeah, but maybe
do an entire episode on Lich Jesus.
we could do a whole episode. I like don't really know a lot about liches except for like.
I know probably too much about liches. Right. So, arguably too much about them.
so on the off weeks eventually, we'll try to do other sorts of stream stuff. I'm going to teach you how to use Roll20.
That'll be good.
Where you can't fudge dice rolls on me, because they're right out in the open.
That's the only way to do it. Oh, that's one thing that I do. One thing that I will do is I roll in the open. Legitimately, the players are looking to like.
Your mic cut out for a sec there.
Oh, did it? Okay.
You're good now, but.
Oh, perfect. I was gonna say one thing that I have done in the past, like in like a large scale fight, when it was like. It was about to be a TPK, and the last character was going to try like casting like an enchantment spell or something to just catch a dragon or what have you.
Right.
I'll roll in the open so that you know I'm not fudging. Like you're either going to win it or you're either going to get it or you're not. They're going to make the save or not.
Yeah. I've only run games in person like 3 times, but I don't own a GM screen. So I always rolled in the open.
We could do an entire game on the GM screen as well. It's such a like that in and of itself is me because I've had a lot of games where not a lot of games I shouldn't say that, but I've had games where it falls into outfighting, like out of character. Like we're all fighting as people, we're not fighting as characters anymore. Like we're actually arguing.
Right.
And I learned, I don't remember who I heard this from. I should look that up. But you take the GM screen and you fold it and you put it down, and then now you're no longer the GM, you're their friend, and you're like, all right, let's pull our shit together. Like we're a table of friends here. We're not gonna sit here and just argue.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. The GM screen is also, again, I'm big on having tools. I have so many tools that I use as a DM, and they're all I love having tools.
Yeah, I agree. I also like having a varied box of like skills and tools and everything. Yep. Fudging dice rolls will never be one of them. No,
it's not for everyone.
Right.
It's not for everyone. I don't modify stats once you start fighting a monster. I used to do that, but once you start fighting the monster, like its stats are concrete because I don't have the energy or the mind focus to alter things and then try to remember, especially if you hit them on an AC of like 21 before and now your 22 doesn't hit anymore. You're like, what? I don't have energy for that.
Well, this is an interesting. We're like every time we're like, all right, we're done.
We're like wrapping up, and then we're like, no, we're still fighting though.
So well, it's not that we're fighting, but so this
right.
is a key difference, and this is why I bring it up. I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't think it was important. I would save it for like the next episode or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
A key difference between the way that we run games. When I alter a monster's stats, I don't have to just do it in my head. Well, I do it in my head. I like decide what I want to do, but then in the character sheet on Roll20, I alter the macros.
Oh, okay.
So like if I want, so my Earth Elemental from my Titan Shore game, when I decided that its slam attack only did 1d6 instead of 2d6 or whatever it was, I just went into that attack, modified that roll macro, because like you click on the roll macro the same way that you click on the rolls in Blades in the Dark, and so like and so it just altered how it rolled.
Nice. Okay.
Which your players will be none the wiser unless they are like mousing over every single roll that you make.
Oh, right. And that's the big thing on me is if I'm playing in a game where the DM has a DM screen up and they make all their rolls behind it, I kind of accept that I'm never going to be, I'll be none the wiser to whether or not they're being honest about the dice rolls or not.
But
which is like an online game. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say an online game is so fascinating because you can't fudge your dice rolls. So it's going to be a very interesting when I finally start DMing, and you've taught me how to DM on Roll20.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting because I won't be able to fudge dice rolls. It'll be very much, I just have to react to whatever it is.
You can roll to yourself.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So
I'm just kidding. All of your rolls in specific are going to be like private. Like, just like... I'm just gonna type out the number. I'm just gonna type out like a 6.
I will kick you off my channel. No, but like so that's how like the dragon heist, the like pre-made adventure, default all of the character sheets for the monsters and everything all default to private rolling. And so like so I have like when we get into like the higher end like fights and like encounters and stuff, I have to go into every sheet and go like, don't whisper rolls, don't whisper rolls, don't whisper rolls. Which becomes a whole thing. And like for the most part, because we only play for 2 hours, so like I've made sure like I tell my players like, so like the sheets default to rolling to me, so if we're doing like something and there's like a quick encounter, do you care? And like most of the time they don't care. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but either way, like the rolls will pop up on the stream, right? So like, so people watching will know whether or not I'm fudging rolls, which it's which is not necessarily running online, but running on a stream for an audience. That's a whole other thing.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing that like if you watch like Penny Arcade and they do acquisitions sometimes I speak proper English. Sometimes they do the same thing where they'll show the character roles, but anytime like Chris Perkins or it's now being done by I forgot his name, please don't hate me, it's not Chris Perkins anymore though, it's Crawford.
Jeremy Crawford.
Jeremy Crawford, thank you. They don't show like anytime they roll that never shows their role. So it's always just been for me because I grew up playing it at a table, and it was always just kind of understood the DM makes noise with the dice. Sure. It's just become so ingrained, for me at least, that that is part of the DMing. So it's like, I don't know how to say like awesome / interesting, like awesome, interesting, fascinating combination, because your background comes from online versions of or online media versions of it, where the fudging the dice rolls wasn't done so much. So like for you, it wasn't even a part of it. For me, that like it was just a known thing. The DMs are just going to make whatever they want behind their screens.
No, totally. No, it's interesting. Like the differences, because like because I started this whole thing watching like Roll20 be played. Like I got into like Critical Role and like the like live action ones like second after I got into watching like roleplay and watching like Adam Koebel's games and stuff like that. And so and you want to know the moment that it occurred to me that DMs could fudge dice rolls, because I'll never forget it. It was an episode of Critical Role that I watched where a character had died and they were doing like the resurrection, and the way that he does the resurrection stuff is like 3 players get to like make, it's like a skill check. Each player gets to make a check, and that lowers the DC of the roll to see whether or not the character comes back. And so like they did that, and then so like Mercer like takes the dice and he rolls the dice, and before he tells anyone what happens, he takes a picture of it and he tweets it out. He's like, I don't want anyone to think that I fudged this. And I was like, oh shit,
that's a thing that could be done.
That's a thing.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's interesting.
And it's stuff like that where you're like, does that mean you do fudge other ones?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's why I'm just upfront with my players. I'm like, listen, if you don't want me fudging dice, please let me know up front. Otherwise, you are victim to Eric's whims of fate.
Yeah. Matt Koval in his game, which is like a live game that he does, if he like rolls an important roll, he'll like, he'll roll it and like lift the DM screen up. So like anyone who like, so like not everyone looks, but like he lifts it up so that the players who are interested can look.
Oh, absolutely. So, and that's such an important thing. I love that we were like on it, off it, and then we're on it again.
Right.
It's like a real it's a real conversation here.
This is gonna be, so here's our meme. Is like, all right, 40-minute long podcast, then it always goes for like an hour.
It always goes for an hour. But yeah, that's the thing. If you've got the DM screen up if you're showing some rolls but not showing others, then you keep that option open to yourself for a reason. I think a lot of DMs keep that option open, even if they've never fudged a dice roll and they never intend to. Having that option open, again, for me, I don't see. I mean, but I do understand people who say it is that they view it as cheating and they view it as like it's a break of that social contract, which is again why. If you're at my table, you know when you're at my table, you know, like I will fudge dice rolls if you don't specifically tell me not to. I think it's just an important tool because any DM has come to a point where I'm sure, and you've come to a point, GM has come to a point where you hit a place where I'm sure you've been like, man, I really wish I could help you guys push forward in this, but like, no.
No,
because I've definitely hit points where I'm like, I don't. If I don't want to trust, well, yeah.
Well, like so I like rule number 1, and this is like in the John Harper has this in like the Blades book. Like rule number 1 is like be a fan of the player characters, and like I definitely agree with that, and I definitely like want to see my player characters. I want to see my players succeed, and I want to see all like, you know, like cool stuff happen, and I want to see them like get their like cool narrative beats and all of that stuff, and like that's my jam. But like if I want to help the players or like help them along, or if I have ever felt that way of like, oh, I wish I could like do something to help out or like push them in this direction or whatever, I do it without fudging. I do it with like
you do it with like
an NPC like comes up and like says a thing, or like, you know, a reinforcements show up, or like some of the goblins run away or something like that. So
for me, those are all the same kind of tool, just showing itself in a different way. If I was going to fudge a dice roll to send them in the right direction, where I could also just send in an NPC to point them in the right direction, I'll fudge the dice roll instead, because then I'm not revealing myself in the story. Whereas if I have to send in an NPC just to be like, oh, you guys should head this way to go check out this castle, like looking back on that, you can go, oh, like there were points where the DM actually stepped in to push us in the right direction. So it's the same thing effectively, but in one of them, I'm not showing that they're pushing strings and pulling cards. I'm playing the fate. And that when I GM, that's the part that I play in my mind. I play the fates, which is where, you know, altering dice rolls and things like that comes more into play, because I'm altering the probability of these heroes succeed. And I don't give out inspiration, and I don't deal in like additional dice rolls for things.
Inspiration's another thing another episode.
I don't give those things out specifically because I'm already going to in some cases, I was about to say most, but in some cases I'm already going to push fates in your favor anyway.
Yeah. Do you so this is another thing, man. We
like this was a good one.
Yeah.
Part 1, part 2.
Right, exactly. So do you consider like fudging dice and like like giving a like roll advantage or disadvantage the same thing?
I mean, yes and no. In certain situations, if I'm giving you advantage or disadvantage for no reason at all, then yeah, kind of. They're both just
not giving
randomized.
Not giving a player disadvantage or advantage, but like you're worried about these goblins, these like black ops, special ops, like tech goblins who have been like rolling really well against your party, and like one of them is like, you know, leveraging a spear at like the last guy or whatever. Have you ever like given that roll disadvantage instead of like just fudging the roll?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's usually my first line. My first line will be if this combat's going really in the enemy's favor, I start imposing disadvantage on random ones. For no reason, just to aid. If that's not enough, which I've often come across that not being enough, is when I start going, all right, that's not a hit. Okay. Like if I'm rolling 19, 18 anyway, and I'm still hitting you, and you're about to die, I'm like, all right, he misses, whatever. Right. Like one miss can, in my mind, one fudged dice roll can alter the tide of battle and make a really good story for the players. And that's kind of the end goal for me. if not stabbing this character through the head, which makes sense for a goblin rushing forward, they're not thinking next attack. They're thinking, here's one down, kill it. If missing that final blow or whatever gives that character a chance.
Here's the thing. I don't think that goblins think that way. Goblins never think that way in my world.
Oh, really?
The most creatures that I like when I'm like running, I don't think that creatures know that death saves or like bleeding out is a condition. I don't play in that way.
Okay.
So like
I think if gone.
So like going back to the Waterdeep like boss fight in the Xanathar Guild hideout, the way that Krentz, that bandit that they had brought with them, the way that he was killed was my friend Jim, who was the rogue who got knocked out, rolled a 20 and got to stand up. And so he got this really sick moment where he got to like stand up and like stick his rapier through this guy's neck and like kill him like out of nowhere, because I gave him advantage on the roll because the guy thought he was down. And so like that's one of the like cool like hero moments that I think is like intrinsic to like a player character in D&D. So I don't think that, because like we don't roll death saves for the monsters. We don't roll death saves for like the like even like bosses and stuff like that. Like when you kill it, you kill it. Like how do you kill this guy? And so like so my goblin, if they like knock a person down, they don't go like, oh, like he's down, like kill him. They go like, all right, we knocked him down, he's gone on to the next one. Like they don't have like that sort of like wherewithal.
I always play my characters, specifically goblins, at least because I play a lot of goblins.
Oh, yeah.
Since they're like warmongering folk, all they care about is death and pillage. So I imagine they like drop somebody, stab, move on. Like it's never like a drop, you fall on the ground and then you. It's always like you just stab until there's plenty of blood coming and then you move on, because that's kind of how they're taught, to make sure things stay down. So I like to play them that way, so that when the players come across them, they're like, okay, if somebody drops, they're gonna kill you. Sure. So we have to make sure. And that's why if suddenly his last strike misses, then it's like, okay, we knew he was going to.
But if someone's down, like the chances of like, oh, you mean like the last hit to like knock them down?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or even if they're like bleeding out or whatever, and they're on their death saving throw, and the goblin's hovering over them with the spear. Yeah. You know, if he stabs down and kills you, you're dead. Right. But if I stab right to the side of you, that opens you up for more story at least. I always hesitate to. That's mostly where I'm fudging my rolls, is, again, insignificant deaths. Right. I really hate insignificant deaths.
Sure, but there's like a certain amount of like so for me, like personally, like if that happened, so like if I was fighting a goblin in your game and you knocked me down and I lost 2 of my death saves and you rolled to hit me the last time and you say like the spear comes down and it goes just to the side and it like just misses your head or something like that, I would ask to see that roll, because that's like a fucking like melee attack with advantage because I'm like down and prone and like all of that stuff. And like,
absolutely.
You know.
And for you, I probably wouldn't fudge the roll.
Exactly.
If you were the player I was rolling against, I'd be like, boom, he hits you. The spear goes through. Right. Because that's what you would want. You wouldn't want a fudged roll.
Yeah.
You're more interested in the realness, so to speak, of the game. And
totally.
So it's all about just different players.
Right. Different strokes for different folks. But yeah, like I don't consider, so like monsters, like there's a certain intelligence score that I play, and like if I'm playing against like, if my players are fighting against like more intelligent things, then like they'll know to like, oh, they knocked him down, like okay, like bend over and like slit their throat or whatever, like
oh right, oh absolutely. I definitely range up in intelligence.
Goblins, kobolds, like all of the little like dinky monsters, even like trolls and shit, like they don't like finish the job. They will like knock down a person and then like look over at like the next thing that's attacking them, that's threatening them, and like go for them.
Different strategies.
And that then gives the player who gets downed the chance for that really cool narrative moment of like rolling that 20 and like standing up and like the eyes like dart open and like, you know, from like prone they like come up and they like deliver the killing blow, like that sort of thing.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
That leads or like, you know, this person's down and the troll like runs off, but then like on the cleric's turn they like healing word them and like get them up, and that gives them like the opportunity to come up from behind, like that sort of thing.
Okay.
It adds a little bit more play. It gives like a little bit more play to it, as opposed to just like if you fall down and like another goblin gets a turn, you're probably dead.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, again, like just we've never played D&D together. Like we've played Blades together. I think it will be really interesting to play like some D&D sessions on either side for both of us, and like see
absolutely.
Yeah. Cuz it sounds like tactically we think very differently.
I think so. But like that's what's going to make I think this podcast so interesting, is we both have the same end goal in mind.
Absolutely.
Like we both very much have the same goal for our players and anybody who sits at our table.
Yeah.
It's just we mechanically get there differently, and I think that's the part that's really going to help, because so many people think there's only like one way you should be DMing or GMing. I always say DMing. It's just a habit. I'm switching myself slowly.
It's whatever.
I like GM better. I think GM works better for me. So it's just a habit.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we're able to depict, there's multiple mechanics you can use to get to the same end goal. You don't have to do it the same as everyone else or whatever.
And the ultimate message is like, neither of us are wrong.
Yeah.
Like we're still gonna go fight about dice rolls at the flagpole at 3:15.
3:15.
Like for sure we're gonna go fisticuffs it out.
Absolutely.
But like neither of us are wrong.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big thing. It's your rules for your table. So important that we could do an entire episode on the social contract. I talk about this all the time. I'm like, the social contract.
We've got that shit written down, I think. So
yeah, I do multiple times. Social contract.
Yeah,
so important.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Do we want to start to end it so that we can start talking about something again?
Yeah, let's do that.
So this has been the addendum to Discussions and Dragons episode 1.
And 1.B.
And Appendix A. So next week, nothing on Sunday, but let's talk, and maybe like sometime during the week or like on Saturday or something like that, we can sit down and do a stream of some sort together.
Something like that.
And then,
I have a couple ideas. I'll shoot over to you.
Absolutely. And then we'll come up with a topic for 2 weeks from now, which is, hold on, I'm totally not looking at the calendar right now.
We're not lying.
To be professional. The 28th of April will be the next time that we do an episode.
28th of April, folks.
28th of April. Tell your friends. Oh, I'm actually... That'll be interesting. So I'll do this, and then that's also the date that we're doing our monthly Strahd session.
Oh,
which is also on the stream.
Ooh, that'll be a busy day for the stream.
Busy day for the stream.
Busy day.
We'll talk and then go explore Strahd's castle some more, because that's what we're in the middle of doing.
Yes.
All right. We'll sign off. We'll say goodbye to you, the fine folks of the internet, and we'll see you.
Goodbye, internet. Goodbye, I don't know about fine folks, but goodbye.
Decent folks. They're
decent.
Yeah, folks. As long as we don't let just anyone listen to this podcast.
So. No. This is some exclusive.
Yeah, fine folks only.
Fine folks only. If you're just a moderate folk,
get out of here. We don't want you. Yeah.
Fine folk only.
Goodbye, internet.
Goodbye.
This is Discussions and Dragons episode 1.